Hello and welcome to Mindscapes, a series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is a remarkable woman, a writer, a winner of the National Book Award. But she's more aptly described perhaps as a social activist, working for the downtrodden, the underprivileged, women, tribals, and those that Mahatma Gandhi described as Harijans. Uniquely, she's been working with a Shanti Sena, a non-violent peace force. I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Nirmala Deshpande. Nirmala ji, what is the concept of a peace force?
The word Shanti Sena or
Ji.
peace force was given by Gandhiji. And as his spiritual heir Vinoba Bhave used to say, he was the supreme commander of the peace force and he was the only soldier.
Ji.
And he laid down his life for peace.
There is a distinction, sort of the word peace is not a very good translation of Shanti, isn't it?
Yes. And we would prefer the word non-violence,
Ji.
ahimsa,
Ji,
to
ji,
peace.
ji.
Because ahimsa is has a wider connotation, and we would like ahimsa to be the guiding factor in all walks of life. So what we are trying to establish a non-violent society, non-violent polity, non-violent economy, culture of non-violence, and to bring about a non-violent social revolution.
When you said we, I hesitated to go through the very long list of organizations that you head and you serve. What is this we that you refer to?
Well, thousands and thousands of my colleagues all over India, and now I can say in other countries also.
How do you sort of describe and articulate and manifest in concrete terms this ideal of nonviolence? I ask this, obviously, it's not merely the absence of physical violence that is
No.
nonviolence. So what are the most subtle aspects in society that you work to promote?
Well, to make people aware that they have a role to play, and as may I go back to Yoga Shastra of Patanjali, there is a beautiful definition of ahimsa. There is 3 types of violence: krita, karita, anumodita. Krita means you do violence, you harm somebody. That everybody knows. Karita is you get it done. But the third one, anumodita, that is what we all are doing today. If we don't do anything to stop violence, to bring about non-violent solutions for problems, then we are a part of the violence that's a part of the whole society. So what we try to do, we work on both levels, the individual level as well as the social one, to bring about a change in the hearts of the people and to bring about a change in the whole social structure.
What kind of numbers are we talking about when you say that we work on the individual level? What numbers of individuals are sort of involved with this process of internal transformation?
Well, I would say by God's grace, thousands. But at the same time, the levels are different. Someone works in his or her own village. There are some who work on a wider sort of a scale. So it differs. But there are thousands.
And under what sort of umbrella or organizational structure do you work?
Well, that is Akhil Bharat Rachanatmak Samaj. It's a kind of an umbrella. And I would say literally hundreds of organizations are affiliated to it. The friends who are working through different organizations they have different kinds of programs. Some work for SCs, some for STs, some for women, some for rural development.
Let's stay with this idea of personal transformation.
Oh, I see.
What sort of techniques, strategies, ideas, what form of engaging does this involve?
That's a part of the spiritual pursuit, sadhana as we call it. It's both individual as well as collective. Prayer, meditation, reading of the scriptures, all part of it.
What form of, say, meditation do you follow?
I can't name any form, but it's part of life. Meditation is just like food. You can't do without your food. So meditation, prayer, silence is part of one's life.
Is there a guiding text, a guiding philosopher, leader, Vinoba Bhave, Gandhiji, their writings?
Yes.
You sort of are inspired and follow the examples of their lives, their striving, their struggles.
Yes.
And in what ways, what are the kind of obstacles or difficulties do you come up against in a very rapidly changing world, in the sense that Gandhiji's own teachings suddenly seemed redundant to the ruling elite in India as soon as India achieved independence. Vinoba Bhaveji managed to sustain that for some time and inspired a generation of politicians and Jayaprakash Narayan and people like that. But again, it seems to have withered away from the mainstream of political life.
May I differ?
Mm-hmm.
It has not withered away. The movement that we are trying to build up, it's for those who feel that the movement has withered away to see for themselves. We just had organized a conference in Calcutta, which is an annual feature, our annual conference, attended by 15,000 delegates from all parts of India, including 500 from Jammu and Kashmir. And some of our delegates had to walk on snow for 15 to 20 kilometers. This is the commitment. And most of them, I would say more than 85%, are young people. And that's the hope. A movement that is taken up by the young people is bound to go ahead, not those of my generation.
So what do you say, teach these young people in terms of their lifestyles, in terms of their ideology and philosophies of living? Gandhiji was also a very pragmatic man, in a sense, and a very practical man, coming from a deep commitment to truth, to self-exploration, and surely his techniques and his world vision would have changed, modified to adapt to current predicaments and crises.
Yes.
So in what ways have you changed that?
Well, as I told you, both at the personal individual level, this prayer and meditation and all that. But if you engage yourself in service of the people, of the poor, then that is also kind of a sadhana, spiritual pursuit. And if you do it in that spirit, so that's why what we try to encourage. And by and large, after all, as you know, we are all human beings. But by and large, I would say that I'm very, very happy and hopeful about the future. That this Gandhian movement is going much ahead than what it was when he had to leave this world. It was Vinoba Bhave whose major contribution to that movement. He took up the land problem and tried to solve it, the Bhudan movement, tried to solve it by non-violent means. And I have walked with him more than 40,000 kilometers, so I have seen how people respond. They give their precious land. And he would say, don't give it because I have come, people used to regard him as a saint. No, if you accept the philosophy that a revolutionary change in the society is needed, and land belongs to God, and everyone who tills the land has a right to land. Land is our mother, and all children have equal right to serve her. And I have seen several times when people would come to him with hundreds of acres of land. They say, we don't believe in your philosophy. But oh, you have come to our village or our town. I want to give this. He said, no. First listen. If your heart and mind say, well, this philosophy is good, then I'll accept. And 50 lakhs of acres were donated to him by those, all kinds of people. Rich, poor, there were some Maharajas who donated 1 lakh acre. And there were some villagers who had 1 acre and they gave half acre. They said, no, we would also like to join this Bhudan Yagya. Why should we be denied? That sort of thing.
It's actually in the vocabulary and contemporary conversation of economics and human motivation. This sounds sort of almost fairy tale like, that someone would sort of voluntarily, in such large numbers, would give up something that in India at least we're so emotionally attached to, land or house and that kind of entity. What was the motivation? What was the impact? What do you think really prompted people to sort of to transform in this very tangible, concrete way?
Well, there were many motives.
Because this was no longer a case of just a battle against colonial rule, or we need to get the foreigner out of India.
This was a positive.
Yes, in a very
not
sort
just
of,
a negative.
That's
one.
right.
Yes.
So it was an amazing way in which a very contentious situation was resolved.
What I found that both Gandhiji and Vinobaji, they knew how to reach the hearts of the people. So they used the idiom that the Indian common man would understand. So even though he used the word dan, he would say, refer to Adi Shankaracharya, danam samyak vibhajanam. Dan is not just giving charity, it is a method of bringing about a social order based on equity. So also Yajna, old concept, but he would present it in an entirely different way. So like that, the idiom, the language that the people of India understand, that they used to speak, and so they could reach, it went straight to their hearts.
Now, how much of that truly survives? Surely much of this was a consequence of the charisma, of the integrity, of the enormous commitment to truth of leaders like Gandhiji and Vinoba. How much of that really survives in the community, in the people? Is there an invisible network of this kind of sincerity, integrity that is away from the blazing lights of the media and television? Do you feel that is really happening? In what numbers and what volumes? When do you think it will make an impact? Will it make an impact?
Yes, it is surviving. And the way you approach the people, unfortunately, may I tell you that though I have also studied in a university, but Jayaprakash Narayan used to say, we have to unlearn a lot if you want to work with the people of India. You should be one with them. And for that, this process of unlearning, which individuals like me who have adopted and tried to become one with them, then you get tremendous response. Even today, if friends like me ask for land, they give. Even today, though the Bhudan movement in a way is not being pursued in the in the way it used to be done. But we have different programs through which we distribute the land. We get the land, distribute it.
What has happened in terms of the relationships of the people who 20, 30 years ago gave up their land and to the people who acquired that land? What is happening in the social context there? Is there peace? Is there stability? Is there conflict?
Well, I must say, let me admit that a tremendous change had occurred for say 2-3 decades. But later on, maybe a lapse on our part. We should have continued it in the same spirit. There is a setback, especially in Bihar. You know.
Well, that's what I was pointing to. Yes.
Violence. But when we take up any work in any district, people say, "Oh, if we had followed Vinobaji, this violence had not taken place." So they take upon themselves that we are responsible, and then we take the same thread. All right, let us now follow Vinobaji and start anew, and they do respond.
Are you sometimes sort of anguished and frustrated that the elite that manage and run India, or at least at the levels of governance and the media, sort of almost see Vinobaji as a sort of an archaic, kind of figure, impractical, not very realistic to today's challenges and predicaments? So if you were to sort of hold out and say to them, well, these are the areas, places in India we have worked, and we have used these strategies, and they have worked, they have made a difference. We can demonstrate that this is the worldview, that's an ideology that's relevant, workable today. What would you say?
Maybe.
What would you say?
In a very short time, we'll be able to demonstrate. We use all kinds of non-violent methods. Satyagraha. Suppose there are evictions. Evictions do take place in the Bhudan land that we have distributed. Then we offer Satyagraha. And the people who have evicted the poor peasants, they come with weapons to fight us. And we go singing bhajans. And you know what happens? Those who come with weapons, they donate more land. That has happened. But here I would like to say that the media never takes note of anything good that's happening. When we could get 5,000 acres back from those who had evicted our Bhudan tenants, hardly any coverage in the media. If we had done something, as you know, thrown stones or anything like that, shouted slogans, Murdabad like that, they would have taken note of it. But ours was so peaceful, so non-violent, that absolutely no coverage in the media. And it's here. I sometimes feel very unhappy that whose interest the media is serving. Because unless you give coverage to all the good that is happening, and so many people in India are doing many good things, but you don't know because there is no coverage.
Wasn't this sort of a unique ability that Gandhiji had? Not only in the kind of activism and what he preached, taught, followed, lived, embodied, but that he was also in some ways, I don't wish to suggest this in any negative way, but he was also very media savvy.
You are right. And that's why we feel that there is something lacking in us, perhaps, that we don't get attention from the media, maybe. And we'll have to find ways and means, find out.
You've been involved with these people-to-people contacts between India and Pakistan, and even within the country between communities that are in conflict. You go in there, and as you said, like a Shanti Sena, non-violent peace force. And this is an idea that is sort of becoming, I don't want to use the word fashionable because that sort of has a derogatory flavor to it, but has developed a great deal of international appeal. So you now have the Hague Appeal for Peace, who have also sort of sought to do this on an international scale. What is the philosophy, the idea of a Shanti Sena? In some ways, Sena already sort of begins to suggest a kind of militarism, or something like that.
But it's Gandhiji's word.
Yes, but I'm just sort of saying that. And we've seen this happen in Kosovo, we've seen this happen in Africa, that where there is conflict, we tend to go in with troops, with more sort of instruments of power and weapons to bring about peace. And this is obviously a very different way of going about it. So what's the kind of mindset? What is the framework within which you approach conflict?
Well, in India, we have three principles. But our method is non-violent, non-communal, and non-partisan or non-political. We approach every human being as human being, and we go to them as human beings. No caste, no religion, no community, no political party, nothing. So that is the kind of discipline that a peace activist has to follow. You have to rise above all this.
That's the personal discipline.
Yes.
We have these amazing...
And then when you go, you do something in a group, it becomes the discipline of the group. In fact, our slogan is Jai Jagat, victory to the whole world. We say we don't belong only to India, we belong to the earth. The earth is one family.
So what has been your most sort of recent success story in this area?
Oh,
here's the media, tell us.
Well, when the Kargil hostilities started, the third day, a statement signed by 25 important personalities from Pakistan and 25 from India, a joint statement for peace and an appeal to both the governments, was released. And then joint peace marches. Most spectacular was here in Chennai, the same day, same time in Quetta. And the Quetta march, I would say, was better than ours. We were very, very happy to see the women came forward while the war was on. So this is something unbelievable, I would say.
While that was a very important and significant symbolic act in terms of trying to counter the atmosphere
hysteria.
of war hysteria and chauvinism and what have you.
Yes.
In what sort of concrete, tangible terms do you think it actually impacted the duration of the war, the nature of the war, and the post-war situation?
Well, we can't claim anything, but we have continued the efforts. And even after the hijack and the atmosphere that was prevailing in both the countries, we organized South Asia Peace Conference. And one of our wing is Indo-Pak Soldiers Initiative for Peace, retired generals and admirals of Indian Army and Pakistan. So we invited our friends from Pakistan, 2 senior generals and 2 brigadiers came. And on the streets of Calcutta, where the conference was held, those generals who had fought 3 wars against each other, they just held their hands and said, "We want peace." That was a sight for gods to see. And in that atmosphere, mind you, when they were to come, they were not sure whether they will be getting visas, where they will be allowed to come. But the tremendous response that they got, and now they have invited their counterparts. So 10 senior officers of Indian Army, along with their wives, are now going to Pakistan.
If you were Prime Minister of India, what initiatives would you take, or would you think are practical and possible, or would embody a solution to the conflict between India and Pakistan, and particularly the issue of Kashmir? What would you do?
Well, Many prime ministers had been my personal friends, so I know their constraints. So it is not just the government, but the people of both countries. If they can have, I would say, a huge mass movement for peace, that will bring pressure on both the governments to follow the path of sanity. And as I told you, we have taken a vow not to enter politics. So that is ruled out for us. But any prime minister or any president of any party will have to follow the right path if the people are strong and they build up a strong peace movement. So we work with the people. That's our area.
Tell me about yourself a little bit personally. What drew you into this? Your father was a member of parliament, was active in politics, and you were in your late teens when India attained independence. And usually we've tended to associate a much older breed of people who were associates with Gandhi, but you were really starting out your youth at a time when most people were renouncing Gandhi and Vinobaji.
Maybe I have been a devotee of Gandhi, I think, from my childhood. I don't know why. But I have always, from early childhood, decided to follow Gandhi. And my parents were so liberal, they always said, whatever you want to do, you can do. So there was absolutely no hindrance from any quarter. And my life is just like a straight line, moving in a particular direction without any zigzags.
So what is that destination of this straight line?
Well, as every Indian, I would say, liberation, moksha, mukti, or nirvana, whatever you may call it, but not just for your own individual self, but according to Buddhist terminology, for all sentient beings.
Nirmalaji, thank you very much. That's really good.